Greetings from London. This is Maryum and welcome to the Star Moggers podcast. So October is the month of breast cancer awareness. And recently I attended a beautiful afternoon tea. It was a charity event for Sakoon Through Cancer. So today I have the founder of Sakoon Through Cancer. Welcome, Samina Hussain.
Welcome. Thank you, Maryum, for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And firstly, can I say that it was a wonderful afternoon tea and delighted to have met you and the community. It was absolutely a wonderful community that you have. Firstly, applaud you for getting through breast cancer and your bravery. And secondly, for setting up such an amazing charity, especially for South Asian women and being South Asian yourself. So how did you know that you actually had breast cancer?
Okay, so I didn't. I never checked. I never did anything. I didn't know about, self-examination or what to do. It was just by chance, by accident.
Just one day you were just
Well, I didn't find it. My husband found the lump and went, "You've got a lump," and I went, "No." So yeah, it was all quite meant to be accidental, but that's not the experience I want for other women, because it was quite harrowing. It was quite shocking. I didn't know. It was just this hard lump sitting at the right of my breast, and it was like, where did that come from? I'd never noticed it before.
Yeah. And how old were you?
Yeah, so I was 45, so I wasn't so the government have a national screening program at the age of 50. So I was 45 when I was diagnosed. And it was it threw me off my pedestal, if I'm honest.
I mean, first you find the lump. And then what was the process? What did you do then next?
Oh my God. So what did I do next? I did what I typically thought I would never do, which was ring the GP in the morning, say, "Oh, I found a lump and I'd like to see a doctor." That's fine. Yes. And what they said to me was, "Oh, we don't have a female GP until much later in the week. And can we book you in with a male doctor?" And I went, no, I'm not doing that. I just panicked. And then later on, about an hour later, my husband was like, "What are you doing? You need to see a doctor." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And he said, "You better ring them back." So I did. I rang them back and I said, "I'm ever so sorry. I think I'm just in panic mode." And they said, "No, totally understand." I said, "Can we change the appointment to today, as you offered earlier?" And that's what they did. So, sometimes our narratives and beliefs of what we're running, or a male shouldn't see our breasts and things, when we're sort of in the middle of a crisis, and that was a crisis moment for me, our sensible thinking just goes out the window, and what we've been told we hold on to. So yeah, it was quite, I was quite shocked at myself. And why did I do that? But you do some funny things.
Your behavior just completely went into what a cultural
a cultural narrative that I thought this is what's expected of me. But actually, like anything in life, you have to act on what is right for you and what do you need to do in life.
Yes.
So yeah, that soon changed that. Anyway, I then saw a male doctor who was absolutely lovely. They offered a chaperone and it was fine. Obviously not fine in terms of the outcome. It was breast cancer, but it was fine in terms of seeing a male doctor and getting into the system and getting the appointment sorted. So that was good.
I want you to walk us through what is the process and what did you do in your journey, so you can inform other people and how from a discovery point to diagnosis to treatment. So once you had the appointment with your doctor, what happened afterwards?
Okay, they then referred me to a breast cancer clinic, and that appointment came quite quickly, within a few weeks. I sorted out my time, made sure. Now, I really, even though I knew, that it's highly likely this could be breast cancer, I still thought to myself, no, it would be nothing, because lots of women had said to me, you do get cysts and, they can just drain it off and you'll be fine. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So I went along to the breast clinic. I went on my own. Okay, this is something I do not advise anyone to do because it's overloaded information. And yeah, you know, I had a mammogram, and I'd never had one in my life. And for those that don't know what a mammogram is, it's they take imaging of your breasts, but your breasts get squeezed between two plates to get the right angle and get the pictures. And they're looking at breast density and if there's any abnormality.
Right.
But they did that. They then quickly moved me into having an ultrasound. As I lay on the bed, the lady that was doing the ultrasound just looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" And my heart just knew, and I just cried and cried and cried. And she said, "I'm going to need to take a biopsy." And I just thought, yeah, okay, there's something there.
Yes.
And it felt like, you know, it felt like a stapler. They just like clicked out a piece.
Right.
And there was a nurse with me, and she held my hand and she said, "You will be okay." But I don't know, it was like this sunken feeling of, oh my God, this is reality. This is going to be breast cancer.
Or you think that it never happens to you, and all of a sudden you have this diagnosis. Well, you know,
yeah,
diagnosis.
Potential diagnosis. And then I quickly moved to see a doctor, and she was a registrar. But I think because they deal with it every day, they're quite a matter of fact.
Yes.
And I remember her words. She sat in the chair and she said, "Right, Mrs. Hussain, you have breast cancer. We can see it on the mammogram and the scans, but we need to do an MDT, which is a multidisciplinary team meeting. And I suggest you go home and rest for a week. We'll get the biopsy results, and then we'll come back to you with a plan." And I think that's when I fell down. I was like, crumbs. I wasn't expecting it to be on the same afternoon. Yeah, sometimes you have a test done and then it takes weeks with the results. It was all very, very fast. And I didn't have a chance to even, you know, consolidate or breathe. It was just like, oh my God, okay. Now, considering there's nobody in my family with breast cancer, and I'll come on a bit more about what that's about, but yeah, it was a shock. And again, I'd gone on my own, and I didn't feel I could drive back home, even though it was only Windsor.
Of course,
I still couldn't do it.
And did you tell anybody, any of your close friends or your, you know, family members, that you were going through this, or you were going for the test, or even?
I mean, family knew I was going just for a checkup, and that's all I did with it. Work colleagues knew I was going for a checkup, and actually there was another girl that worked for me, and she'd requested time off for something similar, but hers was to do with, bless her, she just had a baby like 6 months ago, and it was to do with that. So, you know, I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, suddenly, you know, everything, so suddenly everything I looked at almost shouted out breast cancer. And I remember at that appointment, I rang my daughter to say, "Could you drop your father off?" And she was like, "What's wrong, Mum?" And I said, "Nothing, I just couldn't stop crying." And as soon as my husband arrived, he said, "Are you all right?" I'm a very independent woman, you know, I can go anywhere, everywhere. I do it all myself, and then give them the news afterwards. So I think he was a bit like, this is not like her. Yeah. And it felt like I'd fallen down. And I said to him, "Meri Kismet Kharab," which is, you know, my fate is doomed. And he sort of looked at me and he's like, "You're going to be all right." And I said, "No." I said, I feel like I've been given a death sentence." And he said, "Well, you haven't." Yeah. He said, "You know, you haven't." He said, "You've just been told, you know, that." So
you thought, obviously you think the worst, don't you? You think the worst, you think the end, you think the worst. Yeah,
because I was uneducated. I didn't know about breast cancer. I didn't know about its outcomes. I didn't know about the statistical prevalence or anything. So I think I was a bit like, oh, okay. But do you know what? Actually, came home, rested, and I think, you know, that grieving cycle, you've got to sort of go through it and allow yourself the time to say, it's okay. I need to connect with my space, and And I did hit rock bottom. Yeah, I think I definitely did hit rock bottom. But sometimes, you know, I think in life you need to hit rock bottom to start rising.
Absolutely, that's so true. What happened next? Did you have like some course of treatment? What did they lay out to you? Did they tell you exactly what was to be done and how long it would take?
Yeah, they had a plan, and that's when after they'd, you know, a week later when I went back. So, you know, their proposition was we would do surgery, which was a lumpectomy, not a mastectomy.
Right.
So for those, you know, a mastectomy would have been removing the whole breast, and a lumpectomy is just removing the tumor and part of the breast tissue, and do a lymph node clearance and check under the arm and everything. So that was fine. And then that appointment got scheduled sort of 6 weeks, you know, within 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
In my head, I think I thought, well, that was it. You know, I've just had surgery and anything else that needs to go with it, but that was it. But actually, that wasn't the case for me, because things, I think when you're younger as well, your cancer cells are very active and they can sort of rapidly grow at a faster pace. So, yeah, so I think mine got a bit active a bit too quickly, I think.
Okay.
So then they said, okay, I think, you know, there is indication that we do need to do chemotherapy. Right. So I then embarked on about 6 to 8 months of chemotherapy every 3 weeks. But honestly, I think the chemotherapy was the hardest for me. Surgery was painful and I felt very mutilated. I didn't look at my breasts. I felt very ugly and really sort of torn. But, you know, I knew that in time things would get better and I would heal and do the physio, which we did get there, but it was quite daunting. In some respects, I wish they'd done a mastectomy and just taken it all away, but they said because of my age and where the position of the tumor was, it was easier to do the mastectomy. It was easier to do the lumpectomy, sorry. So, you know, you are trusted in the hands of the doctors and you want to make sure you've explored and sort of taken their advice. And chemotherapy, on the other hand, was much more challenging for me. Right. Because every 3 weeks you'd have this cycle. Within the first 10 days, I lost all of my hair. I was bald. Really? Yeah. And I tried scarves and hats and hijabs, but it didn't quite work for me. I then lost all my eyebrows, and obviously you lose all of your body hair, and you learn to pencil and do all these things I'd never done before. Oh, wow. I think the hardest thing was when I lost my eyelashes, because my eyes were I never even thought about that. I always immediately think, you look at my ignorance, that it's the hair that goes, but never even thought about eyelashes. I mean, it was the eyelashes that went and they were just falling out and my eyes were so sore, and I just kept thinking, oh my God, I think it gave me appreciation for, I now know why we have eyelashes. Because there are some things in life that you just think, oh, I don't know why we have these. You know, it's to beautify mascara, but actually the purpose of eyelashes was to protect the eyes. And I realized that when I lost them. I lost a few nails through chemo, because that does happen. Your nails get weakened. Yeah, and I did wonder why everybody had, you know, fantastic manicures and nail polish, because it sort of keeps the nails strong. But mine, I lost one nail and one on my toe, but you know, I guess it's different for individually, isn't it? Everybody has their own. So you could have the same symptoms, but everybody's individual, and you know, it reacts differently to each and every one. Symptoms. Yeah, everyone's sort of symptoms to chemo or response reactions are going to be very, very different. You'll never get two the same. I was very sicky after chemo, and they had to adjust my anti-sickness. I became neutropenic a couple of times, which meant my levels are quite low, and I was, you know, suspected to infections. So I'd end up in hospital, needing medication. I had a blood clot through one of my, so I had a PICC line for my chemo in my arm, which got blocked. That got taken out. I had a chest port that got infected, that got taken out, and then I ended up with a Hickman
Why so
lung
many
stroke.
infections? Was it just?
I was just thinking because I had other complications. I was diabetic.
Oh,
And
right, diabetic.
so,
Okay.
yeah, you're trying to get drugs into somebody, so it's
Yeah.
it's trying to get the best way. So I think, my journey with chemo was really tough.
Tough.
And
Yeah.
yeah, really, I put on a lot of weight as well. So I put on about 20 kg.
Oh, wow.
And I
Okay.
was much slower. It's my body, and yeah, everything was much
And
harder.
were you able to still work throughout no, you stopped
Yeah.
working completely?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so when I was diagnosed, I'd just taken on a new role for another local authority in London, and I literally had just left my old job.
Oh, okay.
And it was a bit like, oh my God, how could this be happening? But the new employer was amazing. They supported me. They said, look, it happens, don't worry. But I didn't go to work. I went to work for the first few weeks, then had surgery, and then didn't go back for about a good 9 months. And
Right.
I was just very exhausted, fatigue, recovery, surgery, chemo. And then I had 28 sessions of radiotherapy at a local hospital, Mount Vernon. And that was easier on me. I think, once they'd sorted out where and how and timings, I
Right.
found actually the radiotherapy was easier on me. And that isn't the
Right.
case for everyone, because some people
Right.
find it easy through chemo and challenging through radiotherapy. But
Mm.
for me, my RADS was an easier journey, and I met some lovely people, but actually, the side effects were very minimal. My skin was fine. They gave you good advice, but I was okay.
After chemotherapy, that your eyelashes and hair started to grow back. Was that after the 9 months of chemo?
6 months, yeah. So 6
6 months.
or 7 months, yeah. As soon as the chemo stopped, then things started to grow back, and sort of, yeah.
Started
Because I
feeling
think
your.
it's drugs. If you think about it, chemo actually gets rid of all of the good cells and the
And
bad.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So that's
yeah,
why I think there is such an adverse
yeah.
effect.
And who was supporting you through that journey?
Yeah, support was really through family and friends,
Yeah.
my husband, children, and the
And did they
network.
understand exactly what you were going through? Did you,
They
you know,
did.
did they
Yeah,
have an
they did.
understanding? Yeah.
They did. I mean, they had an understanding, but they also felt like they needed to protect me from others, and just from, being overwhelmed. You see, all my life, I've been enough for them. I would do everything, hubby, children, organizing, sorting holidays, as you do.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I stopped. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't cook.
Mm.
Not that I did much cooking, because my husband always did that. But I just couldn't do anything. And
How
I
did you
think
feel?
it made me feel quite, people were changing their days. My husband was changing his shift, so he was only working a few hours in the morning. So there was somebody at home. I sort of felt like, gosh, I'm totally come to a standstill. But I also saw it as, no, I need this time to heal. I need
Yes.
this time to get stronger and spiritually align. And I remember saying to myself, I've put a protective ring around myself, and I can only focus on me. And to be honest, Maryum, it's the first time in my life I could focus on me, and I mattered. Whereas up
Yes.
until that moment of going through
It's about
cancer,
everybody else.
I
Mm.
was always the mother, the sister, the wife, the daughter.
Yeah.
And suddenly all of that, I was like, no, no mass, I just can't do anymore.
Yeah.
And my family were amazing. There are odd people that, you know that they find it really hard to watch you.
Yes.
And you just have to stand them down politely, because it's really hard when you're very close family to see someone
Yes.
go through a journey like this. But I kept it upbeat. I mean, honestly, I shared on Facebook. That was my coping mechanism.
Right. Okay. That was your
And
outlet. Yeah.
yeah, that was
Mm.
my strategy. It was the only way I could sort of articulate in pictures or words or educate people. But
Yeah.
do you know what? The world was beautiful. People were amazing. They would ask how I was, and at night time, if I couldn't sleep and I was just sharing or clicking, they would jump on and say, how you doing? And it was, God sent me an army of beautiful people.
How did you start Sakoon Through Cancer then? What made you start this charity? I don't know any other charity for South Asian women to create that awareness. And also in our culture, religion, maybe it's more of a cultural thing, not a religious thing, but really about like hiding something, and something like you feel scared of telling somebody, you feel ashamed. There's so many feelings that go through. How do we educate our South Asian women families?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, again, through that Facebook journey of mine, I learned that lots of women were connecting, and they were telling me that, my mother died from breast cancer. Thank you for sharing your pictures. We'll keep you in our prayers. And we could never talk about it. And I was like, oh my God, that is devastating. How can how can we not normalize the conversation? If you've lost someone you love and it is breast cancer, then and there was shame attached, or there was like, well, we mustn't discuss it. And it was like, no. And then also when I was going through chemo, I didn't see other South Asian women like me, and I just kept thinking, do they not get breast cancer? Am I the only one? And the nurses would smile and say, no, actually, you're the only one that talks to everyone.
Yeah.
Most come in and do the cold cap, which is about preserving their hair, and then they would leave, and it would be very, or the husbands or the partners would talk for them. And I was like, oh, okay, that's devastating, really, because, this isn't, what, a cancer journey isn't something that you just do for 3 or 6 months and then that's it, you go back to your old life. Because I didn't want my old life. My old life is what gave me cancer. So now I wanted to explore and breathe and find out, okay, what do I need next? And so they were the real reasons why I thought, hang on a minute, we need to give South Asian women a platform to normalize the conversation. We need to advocate on their behalf. We need to educate them that to say the word breast, it is a part of our anatomy. It is safe to say it. And we need to know so we have a hashtag say, know you're normal. And know what your what's normal for you, because everyone is different. So I think as I embarked and did a bit of fundraising, my first fundraiser was a cake sale for the staff at the the Eden unit, for the cancer unit, because I thought, oh, you've got to, if you take from a system, you've got to give back. And I was like, what can I do to help these guys to get some funds? And we actually raised enough money to get some TVs put up in the which is now the Eden cancer unit at Wexham Park, which was brilliant.
Wonderful.
It was just a little gesture, but if it made someone's journey easier, then that's what mattered. Sadly, COVID happened as well, because lockdown. So we started to do a few physical meetings coming together, and then COVID happened. And obviously, if you've got cancer and you're going through chemo, the heightened risk was just COVID and everything else. So we sort of then thought, okay, let's go online and start doing a digital service. And we had people connecting up and down the country.
Wonderful.
We were Insta Live. We were just having different people come and share their stories. You see, for me, the more we storytell, the more we empower women to know that actually this is, our body, or our bodies are a gift to us.
Yes.
And we have a responsibility to ensure, like we moisture our hands and, our feet and do everything, we have the same for all of the other parts of our body. And even our breasts, we need to look at them. We need to do the self-examination. Lots of videos on our website on how you do that. There's lots of, flyers, and we've created a flyer, but really just being quite firm with yourself.
Let's break down some of the myths that there are around kind of breast cancer. What would you say if you name a few, so we can start the conversation?
Yeah, no. So some of the myths around shouldn't touch my boobs, or it's wrong to. Somebody contacted. The myths around. Wearing a black bra will mean you'll never get breast cancer, or eating certain foods. There were things that people were sending me Some
Right.
people had said, I don't know what you've done wrong in life if you've been given breast cancer. And you're like, okay, well, now I feel I've been chosen on this journey. And I actually say to
Absolutely.
people, cancer was good for me. I think the other thing is, because we don't talk about it, and people don't know their family history. So like I
Yes.
said when I opened that, oh, I didn't have any family history. Well, I actually don't know, because if people never spoke about cancer or breast cancer,
How would you know?
how would
How
I
would
know?
you know?
Even though
Yeah.
I'd asked family here and Pakistan, but again, you know, my husband said you only found out somebody had cancer once they died, so it was never talked about.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
It's
I
never
think,
thought of. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so I think that's the challenge. We don't have an accurate history. We don't understand our risk levels. We don't understand our prevalence. Um, and also, you know, nobody talks about it. So I think the biggest myth busting is we should be mosques, gurdwaras, temples, community gatherings. We should be talking about breasts. And I have knitted boobs that I take with a marble, and I take them everywhere I go, so that, you know, people can see that it's quite safe, it's easy
Yeah.
to examine in the privacy of your own home. I think when they asked me at the appointment at the hospital, when I saw the doctor, and they said, oh, when was the last time you examined your breasts? I was like, well, I've never done it.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't answer a simple question as a woman that has been born and lived in England all her life, but I couldn't answer the question.
And how often should we examine our breasts?
Every month, try and have it set ideally, if you're still sort of on the menstrual cycle, then try and we'll wait for that to clear, and a week
Right.
later,
Because your body kind of changes once you're on the cycle
changes.
anyway, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
and you will get lumps and bumps, that's quite
Yeah.
normal, you know. But you know, make sure that you're doing it at a set time each month, and it's about having a good examination, but also making sure that you use one hand behind your head, really stretch all of the muscles, and then use the other hand firmly. Don't, you know, don't be scared, just have a real good
Oh,
prod about, and under your
right.
arm and under your collarbone is really important.
Oh,
But we
right.
have got videos on our
Okay,
in
which I will link. Yeah,
yes, and in
I will
Urdu
link
and
all the
in
details
English.
for the charity. That's some of the myths. What about the treatments then? A mammogram is what I know of. Is the first kind of diagnosis, is the check that you have, and that's only at the age of 50 in the UK.
So the reason that mammograms are at 50 is because the technology, and also, so when we had the afternoon tea, Dr. Nighat explained, you know,
Absolutely.
Nighat Arif, that, you know,
She was amazing.
yeah,
Absolutely.
she is. I
Wonderful.
love her.
Wonderful. Yeah.
She's just so speaks plain English that it makes it easy for everyone to understand, and she's illustrated that in her book. But again, the knowledge, your breasts are dense, so it is about, so a mammogram will, you know, will pick up if you've got dense breasts, like dense tissue, then it might not pick it up. But, and that's why, you know, yes, you do a mammogram at 50, but know you're normal, and be constantly checking for change, looking in the mirror, seeing, you know, if the skin has changed, if there's any weeping from the nipple, if there's any skin texture change, because you are the expert of your body.
Yeah,
So, you know,
absolutely.
you can't say, well, I'm going to wait until I'm 50 until I have a
Yeah.
mammogram. That doesn't work, because I was 45. I know lots of women that were under 40 that were diagnosed, or even younger. So I say that firstly, get into a regular rhythm of checking your own breast, knowing yourself and your body. And if you see any changes, then you don't alarm yourself, but reach out to a clinician or medical professionals, your GP, you can see a nurse, and just talk it through. Well, last month that wasn't there, it's here now, this is what I'm feeling. And let them then look at what is it you need next. You can still have a mammogram under 50, but it has to be requested by the GP. You can have a scan, you can, you know, there's lots of other things they can do. They can self-examine you just to see what is it that you're feeling and finding. So I think the utmost first thing to do is to make sure you've gotten a rhythm of knowing your body, know you're normal, do your self-examinations. And that is the bit I never did, because
Right.
I would have picked up So I ended up with stage 3 diagnosis. And I think had I been self-checking, I might have seen or alerted myself earlier.
Yes.
Now, I think definitely the skin changes, the weepiness, the itchiness, everything was there, but I just didn't know it was there.
Yeah. Yeah. You just don't even think about it. And again, if you do it every month, then, I can't even remember the last time I've done a check unless I've, had some problem or I thought something. But I'm also aware of it because from a young age, my mother, when she came from Pakistan, when she got married, she actually had a lump in her breast. And she had two actually, and they found two, but they were benign. So nothing to worry about. But still, if that wasn't detected, that you just don't know, do you? And again, if you didn't have the awareness and the support of my father, then how would you get through something like that? A new country, you've just moved, and all of a sudden you've got this alarming lump, and you think the worst. But alhamdulillah, how important is it for husbands and the role of family in your journey?
Yeah,
What would you say?
definitely. And raising awareness with our males, on breast cancer, and seeing how they can support their loved ones and family. It's so important because you don't go through this journey on your own. It affects everyone. My daughter was at university. It affected her. She was running a household overnight. My husband was suddenly afraid his partner was going to die, his wife was going to die, and no matter how much reassurance I put out, I couldn't change what they were thinking because I didn't know myself what the next steps were.
Yes. Did you have any kind of counseling together as a family? Is there something
No, there are services. So there's
Yeah.
Macmillan, there was the Linda Jackson Centre at Mount Vernon. So yes, I did some art therapy and I did get some counselling, more so towards the end of the journey as you transition back into everyday life. That's where I felt I needed it. But again, you learn that life's not about waiting for the storm to pass, it's learning to dance in the rain. And as a family, we had to just change our way of how we did things and just come together. It does break you all at different points. I had a birthday in between, and just watching my youngest daughter break down and cry and say, "Mum, you're not going to make it." And I remember laughing, saying, I'd probably get hit by a bus. Death will take me and I'll get hit by a bus and it won't be cancer. So come on, girl. And so I think because it's such a long period, 6-9 months, you all become quite drained from it. And no matter how upbeat you try and keep it as business as usual, it is tough. But there are resources out there. There is support mechanisms. We've got a good to talk service now, which I designed on the fact that you're never alone. Nobody should go through.
So can you explain a little bit about that then?
Yeah, it's a befriending service. So we match people up with who've got the same sort of diagnosis, mother tongue language. So you can then have someone to talk to. It's non-medical, so we don't cover anything medical because that's what clinicians are there for. But it is about, sometimes you just want to talk about. So the reason I modeled that is there was a lady I knew called Rosie, and her sister, I went to school, and she sort of said, "Well, chat to Rosie." And I laughed and went, "Why?" She said, "Because she's been through it." And people don't know who's been through it, you see. So when I did reach out to her, we had a beautiful conversation, and I had some concerns about my eyesight, about my hair, and she was like, "It's okay, just ask them when you go to your next appointment, keep a list, think about." And I was like, wow, really powerful. So sometimes it's not always medical advice you need.
No,
it's everyday
social
life,
support. Social support, isn't it?
So that's what the befriending is for. But find your tribe is what I would say, and surround yourself with great people that do understand you. I mean, there are myths out there, lots. I mean, I had one dear friend whose husband was really uncomfortable and said, "I don't think you should sit next to me because just in case you catch it." Because people are not educated and don't understand. So you will come across comments that will be slightly like shocking, hurtful, or sad, but that's
Yes.
okay too, because that's not because they want to be unkind. It's because that's their understanding, that's their
Yes.
world. And
Yes.
that's where, again, where Sakoon Through Cancer, Sakoon meaning peace and tranquility, is I need to level the bar or raise the bar and allow people to have a better understanding so that they can
Yes.
keep sharing the messages. So
Yeah. And I think it's more prevalent in probably this first generation that came here who don't have an understanding. They had the lack of language and couldn't communicate, whereas second, third generation a little bit more aware. I mean, I'm second generation, but still there was things that happened at the afternoon tea and I was like, "Oh, I don't know the answer to that." It's just simple questions, and I was like, and so you have to really re-educate yourself again,
educate yourself. And
right?
I think, again, a lot of women that have gone through cancer, second, third generation, have said, I don't have a need that I can't speak English, but you have psychological, emotional, physical needs that are suppressed.
Yes.
And you need to be able to have mechanisms to articulate that. And this is why the power of storytelling, and at the afternoon tea, just women supporting each other, mingling,
Yes, it was
empowering.
beautiful. What a beautiful,
It,
beautiful event that was, and just community. I mean, just such a love was just a beautiful, loving space, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's
just
what we can create, and as a collective together.
yes,
And that's my dream, that we can have safe spaces for women and for men, in the is so
yes,
that people feel confident that they can talk about their journey, talk about their experience, help another sister or another person
yes,
to come through and not feel afraid. Because I always say, if I could help one woman understand the cancer journey, or whatever she's going through and experiencing, then I feel, thank you, God, I had cancer. Cancer was good for me, and I had it for the right reason, because I can help navigate someone else.
What is the biggest learning from having cancer? What have you learned about yourself?
Oh my God, self-love. Yeah. Maryum, I never knew what self-love was until I got cancer. So, absolutely taking time out, loving myself, being authentic and true to myself. Saying no is another bold thing. There were lots of yeses I did before cancer. There's
Right.
lots of no's I do now confidently. And I love that about myself, because I'm not going to sacrifice or make decisions on my energy or my time that is not needed. I've walked away from lots of toxicity and the wrong things in terms of people's energy and time, because my tribe now is of wonderful, wonderful people that
Yes.
just want to do good in this world, no matter what. And I just think that's the space I want to thrive in.
Yeah, it's a beautiful mission. So what is next for Sakoon Through Cancer? What are you working on? How can we all support you as women? And how can we get involved?
Yeah, no, definitely. And so constantly just building that ambition to grow, take it bigger, take it national even. But with all of this, it's funding, it's sponsorship, it's acknowledgement, it's sort of raising the profile. So I think, I think in the next year, next 12 months is my deadline to try and come up with something, source sort of secure funding, have a physical presence, possibly, have a sort of community hub, because I think,
Yes.
what we replicated at the afternoon tea needs to be replicated every day, so that
Yes.
people can come in. So I think I'd love to have my own sort of physical center,
Yes.
where we could have space, we could have sort of therapies, we could have just people, we could extend our kitchen table and have lots of conversations every
Yes.
day. So that would
Absolutely.
be my dream. And, have people like you popping in to talk to
I mean, we met through Poonam, and Poonam is a dear friend of mine, and she said, "Come on," and she's mentioned a couple of times, and I was like, I will," and just happened. You just wherever you are is where you're meant to be, and I always say that was the time for me to attend the event. It was such a beautiful event. Honestly, I absolutely loved it. So you've got my full support, and I will be helping with Sakoon for the next year. So anything that I can do and share more stories and really
No,
kind of create
and
that
I think,
awareness. Yeah,
yeah,
I think you
it's
don't know until you again meet people who share those stories, and it's not the
right,
fact that you personally have breast cancer, but you might know somebody, you might know a friend,
right.
and someone somewhere might need that help, and at least then you can say, well, why don't you see or seek out some advice from Sakoon, because
Yeah,
they're, you know, because you know them. And I think it's all about, again, creating that community.
it
And
is creating reputation, community, ripple
yeah,
effect. We do lots of work in schools. So if anyone's got connections in schools, in
yes,
businesses that would like talks on breast cancer, we would happily send volunteers in, or you know, provide that workshop. So
yes,
it is about normalizing the conversation, keep growing, keep talking, and keep
yes.
sharing stories.
So what's your next event coming up, and how can we all get involved? Is it because I want to support you, want to make sure that everybody that is watching or
Yeah,
listening to the
so
podcast is
uh,
attending?
yeah, no, so we are going to be holding, we have an amazing women's only disco. And I know disco is probably a bit old school, but actually they have such an amazing time, because it is about empowering women to let their hair down and live
Yeah,
life in it for themselves. So we've got that in February. And you know, it's a lovely event. It's, you know, beautifully done, and we have, you know, food, lots of women, they all mingle, you know, prizes, a bit of an auction. So
yes,
you know, if there's anything anyone can do, even come and represent, and we can share the information once we're out there. Sponsorship, or you know, if you've got raffle prizes, you know, anything, you know, as a
yeah,
small charity, that's what we do. We collect up.
wonderful.
So we'll do that. We've been doing during October, we've been doing Insta lives with different
Right.
people talking about their journey, a bit like this. We've and then it's our services that will continue. But it is about, yeah, it's, and we definitely want to do another afternoon tea probably in the spring, because
Yes.
you know, the power of connection is vital for
It
us.
was beautiful. I mean, if and I can vouch, it was one of the best afternoon teas that I've ever been to. It was
Oh,
beautiful. It was wonderful, wonderfully organized, and just beautiful people. I think that's what makes, they say people make a party. So it was really about the people who were there. So it was wonderful. Thank you, Samina, for firstly creating such a beautiful awareness, and having you on the show. Beautiful. I look forward to February.
yes, no, definitely look forward to seeing as many of you that can attend. So yeah, no,
Absolutely.
fantastic.
I'll put all the details in, and wishing you all the best. Healthy and
Excellent.
happy journey, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Maryum. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it on behalf of Sakoon Through Cancer.
Thank you so much.